Hi everyone, I'm Diane Rule, and welcome to Restoring the American Covenant. This is episode number 2, and our question today is what happened to the history on our American Covenant? The last time we were together, we discussed what the American Covenant was, and we were asking why we hadn't ever heard about it. I probably spent about 12 years in school, so did you, a couple years in college, and decades in religion. So why had we never heard of this American Covenant that our early settlers and our founding fathers knew? Where did our history go and why was it hidden from us? Well, in my research, I found out on July 4th, 1876, the 100-year anniversary of our Declaration of Independence, a group of atheists came together called the National Liberal League, and they assembled a plan called the Demands for Liberalism, and it listed their 9 goals to remove God from our schools, from our government, and from our society. If you want to look for yourself, I found this information in the Founder's Bible by David Barton, published by his company called wallbuilders.com. Now, David Barton is one of our great American historians who's dedicated his life to real American history. He's collected the documents and written the books with all the footnotes that you need in it. This is the Bible I'm talking about, the Founder's Bible. A wonderful, great big tome. As you can see, I put all my post-it notes in it, so I found a lot of interesting, good stuff in it. This is a great work of art. It is the Geneva Bible, the Bible that the Puritans/Pilgrims brought with them to America. And Mr. Barton put together the Geneva Bible and American history to show how our ancestors pulled out and applied that biblical wisdom to our society for a free and an independent society. It contains beautiful artwork to illustrate the biblical and the historical stories that it contains, and your children are going to love it. You're going to love it because it's an easy Bible to read and understand, unlike the King James Bible. Now, this book could be a great family heirloom. I do not offer it here at our website, but you can go to Mr. Barton's website. It's www.wallbuilders.com, and click on the store page, and you'll see the Founder's Bible. I'll put it below. You can just click on it. Now, let's get back to those atheists who call themselves the National Liberal League. I don't really have a problem with atheists or what a person believes in or doesn't believe in. It's really not any of my business. But I do object to the removal of the Judeo-Christian values, which binds most of our citizens together on a common ground. Now, really, I can't believe it. I don't know how anybody lives in this world without belief in God. Where do you get your hope from? It's just like, I don't understand. I feel sorry. But some of these atheist goals were to remove the Bible as a textbook and to remove school prayer. Now, they did achieve this in 1962 and 1963. They wanted to discontinue the services of pastors and ministers in Congress, in our state legislatures, and in the armed services and prisons. They also wanted to remove laws about the observance of Sunday as the Sabbath. I remember when I was a little girl, my mom would always make sure we had plenty of milk on Saturday because the stores would be closed on Sunday. Back then, Sundays were meant for church and family. The atheists appealed to the store owners by convincing them they could increase their weekly sales by adding on another day to sell. So they opened their stores on Sunday. Now, we, the American people, saw it for what it was, a way to break the Sabbath and the fourth commandment. But we also enjoyed the convenience of dropping by to pick something up we had forgotten. This group didn't believe in God, but they sure knew how to manipulate his people. When this group moved too quickly or pushed too hard, the American people would push back and confront them. And they would act like they were going away and dissolving their group. But what they would do is they'd go underground, wait for the heat to die down, and then come back up with a whole nother name for the same goals. Now, today you may have heard of some of them. They're called the American Atheists, People for the American Way, and Freedom from Religion Foundation. And they put their talking points out through MoveOn.org and Media Matters. And they use the American Civil Liberties Union to change our laws. Now, if these atheists weren't bad enough, another group came together around 1912, and they called themselves the Progressives. You may remember them from the last election. Their goals closely reflected the atheist theology, but the Progressives They wanted to remove God from our society too, but they wanted to replace him with the state or socialism. And what they believed in was created individuals. It's a collectivist theory, part of socialism, to manage and mold people into useful citizens for the collective. Now, neither one of these groups believed in God's plan for mankind. Our ancestors believed that God created man in his own image and gave each human being specific skills, talents, and a future that fulfills the individual's divine destiny. The National Liberal League and the Progressives do not believe in God or God's plan for each individual. These people knew most American people did, so they secretly infiltrated into our schools, targeting our young children in their minds. Now, this is very important. If you want to change a culture, you don't start with the adults or the senior citizens because they're well grounded and firm in their belief system. But the little guys, they're still forming their ideas. They look up to authority, their parents, and also their school teachers. So they're a little bit more malleable. So this is where they decided to start. Now, some of their members were elected to the school boards. Other members were authors. They rewrote our history book without reference to the many miracles and blessings that God bestowed on our young nation because of the American covenant. This rewriting of our history to make it appear godless is called revisionism. They removed the divine hand of providence, which built up nations and guides his people and his leaders. They have deprived our children of the rich history and miracles that made this country possible. These stories that they revised would have engendered in our children a love of God and a love of country. Now, these stories would have inspired our children to be strong individualists, just like their forefathers, to dream big dreams and to work towards those goals. Now, how can you tell if your children are reading one of these revisionist textbooks? Well, if they're reading a historical textbook or a biography, there should be footnotes, and the footnotes refer the reader back to the original document that the information was taken from and the year that it was written. Most textbooks in our schools do not have these important footnotes because the revised history is only the opinion of the author. And you'll find that some of the textbooks do have the footnotes. But what you have to be careful of is sometimes they cut off the quotes. They sort of slice and dice them. You'll see it in the media sometimes. Somebody will say something and then the media will report it and take part of the quote out. This happens in our history and our textbooks too. So the atheists and the progressives, they have a common goal, and that is to remove our dependence upon God and replace it with government. The members of these groups inserted themselves into our everyday lives. They became our elected leaders, our church leaders, actors and newscasters, teachers and professors. Now, of course, most of the people in these professions are professionals, but some have their own agenda, and those are the ones that we're talking about. These are people who started out in the ranks, slowly worked their way up to the top echelon, and then started putting in their agenda inside of our institutions. These groups continue to alter our history, degrading our founding fathers and slowly chipping away at America's godly foundations. They changed our culture by changing our vocabulary in movies, newscasts, and newspapers. They called America a democracy. America is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic with a written constitution and written laws. Now these laws, these laws are spelled out to bind down the power we give to our leaders. Now we elect our leaders from amongst us. There should be no aristocracy. Aristocracy is power passed down within families, political power passed down within families from generation to generation, like the monarchs of Europe. And we aren't supposed to have that, but in recent decades, we've seen this tendency arise, starting with the Roosevelt family, then the Clintons and the Bushes, and also the Kennedy families. It's not supposed to be this way. Our leaders are supposed to be elected on merit and experience, not on family ties. They should also be good, godly men and women. And the reason you want to have this is because these people receive power. And the human tendency is once you get power, you want more. And that's a problem you see in Washington right now. So if we have godly men and women, they're under that individual covenant with God, which gives it that self-governance. And the self-governance is what we want to see from them. So when they have the ability to grab more power, they'll say, no, that isn't my power to have. Gives them self-discipline. Now, we are not a democracy because what happens in a democracy is that 51% of the people vote to redistribute the wealth of the 49%. We are told this will result in equality, which it does, but not the quality that most people desire. They desire to be lifted up financially and socially. They want to be given food, education, health care, jobs, and wages. Socialism feeds on people's sloth, envy, and greed to have what others have without doing what they did to get it. Think about this. People who work long, hard hours, miss time with their families, bypass vacations, and build our economy into a powerhouse this world has never seen before, would have their wealth ripped from their hands to give to others who didn't invest their time and their efforts. When socialism is enacted, this is what really happens. Anyone with money takes their money and flees the country. Then the economy tanks. The 48%, and we're talking about 48, not 49 anymore, the 48% is lowered to the level of the 51%. And then that top 1% retains some of the redistribution of wealth, becoming even richer. But in a short time, everyone is plunged into poverty, and the top 1% remains in firm control of the 99%. This is socialism. There's no money to fight back. It's all been taken and redistributed. Hence, the people have no power to resist or change their minds. It is much too late for that, and there is no option to go back. For instance, let's take a look at Venezuela today. They were once a prosperous oil country. Food was plentiful, and the quality of life was good, but they bought into the redistribution of wealth trap. The wealth fled, inflation rose as the money disappeared, corporations were taken over by the government, and unemployment rose, and now they have no toilet paper. Food is scarce, and they have eaten the animals in the zoo, and I've also heard they might be eating their dogs and cats. I mean, this is so sad. They're rioting in the streets by starving, with no way to fight back because they have no money left. If they continue to riot, their government may double down and bring in communism, and that is true slavery of its people. Now, why is it that every year a larger percentage of our population thinks that socialism is a good idea? It's because our schools teach socialism to our children, claiming equality and social justice will be served. Because we haven't taught our children and we haven't taken seriously the American covenant, either individually or nationally. If we had been taught that envy, jealousy, and greed are to be avoided by following the 10th commandment, which is thou shalt not covet, it would follow that we would believe in God's plan for our lives. We would work hard, and coupled with our talents and our skills that He gave us, it would assure that our life would lead to true happiness. Now we listen to the world, and we believed its lies, precisely what the atheists and the progressives wanted all along. There is evil, and it's not in the air. It's in the hearts and the minds of men and women. This evil is manifested in utopian dreams of wealth redistribution. These groups that want to seize control of our children and our society. Our constitutional republic ensures through law that there is respect for each individual. Each pursues their God-given talents to benefit themselves, their families, and our societies. No one should have the fruits of their labor ripped from their hands by a greedy government for the livelihood of others. That is socialism, and we will not tolerate it here in America. And there's another great thing about America. We have something that's called upward mobility. Our ancestors came from Europe. And back then, if you were born into a family that, let's say, did farming, you would be a farmer as their children. The next generation, they would be farmers too. And the following generation would be farmers also. There was no upward mobility. But here in America, we have upward mobility. You can come here as a dirt poor immigrant and build yourself up to be a millionaire or a billionaire just based on education or just a great product or service that will benefit millions of other people. But you become that because you've created something of value within the society. So here in America, we have that upward mobility. We don't have to look to others to help us or support us because we can do it ourselves with our belief in God and our Constitution and the freedoms that we have here in America. Now, our history has been stolen from us, and that is the purpose for this website, to tell you the stories that have been erased. I will tell you the stories they have taken from us and sell you the books with the footnotes of our true history. You will know the dreams and the hopes of our founding fathers and how their reliance on their faith saw them through when all looked hopeless. You'll hear about their successes and their mistakes and how they corrected those mistakes through their belief in God and our written Constitution and their desire to be a moral and virtuous people. I hope you will please join me again for episode number 3 here at www.restoringamericancovenant.com. We will be going back into the 16th and the 17th centuries in Europe to see the dire conditions our ancestors faced, which led them to flee to America. I'd also like to point out to you there is 2 other tabs on the website, and that is FYI, which is for your information. That deals with health issues and some of the things that are on the market today that makes us sick. Our country used to go under the banner of do no harm, but I've noticed over the years with my health, and there's certain things that you have to stay away from here in America. There's another tab, and it's called In the News. And In the News is going to be addressing current events and the things that are going on in our country. So I hope you'll tune in for those 2 other tabs with those videos. Just you first and then your children, because some of the things we're going to be discussing your kids might not be mature enough for it yet. But here on the video page, that's for the whole family. So I want to thank you for joining me here today, and may God always smile down upon you, your family, and the United States of America. Thank you.